Hello and welcome to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays. My name is Michelle Irwin. We are today meeting with probably the most on-brand guest we've had on Retail Media Thursdays, Ollie Walls from PubMatic, here in Soho, just a stone's throw from our offices. Ollie, welcome to Retail Media Thursdays.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
We are very excited to have you.
Yes, thank you.
So do you want to introduce yourself to begin with?
Yeah, of course. I'm Ollie. I've been in this retail media sector for 11 odd years. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I used to have a full head of hair when I first joined, but now it's gone. But I'm now the director of e-commerce, if I've said that correctly, commerce, for PubMatic. And I've been doing that for the last year or so. And that's me in a nutshell.
I love that you just admitted off camera that you've been working in commerce, e-commerce for that long, and you still struggle to say the word commerce, which...
We're gonna like just gloss over that for a while and just pretend that we're gonna call it retail media from moving on.
Let's do that. So what's been your pick of the week?
From a personal standpoint, I would say it'd be the fact that my son's not ill for the first time in 15 months, which means I'm not ill for the first time in 15 months. So I'm very happy about that.
Well, it's good that you've, I know you had laryngitis last week, so yes. I'm glad you've cleared up and you've got a voice for today. Which pub, restaurant are we in today and why?
We are in the Brindisa tapas place, mainly because we're both lazy and we both work pretty much opposite this building. So we are here because we couldn't be bothered to walk anywhere. And we did have a pub booked opposite, but last minute changes meant we couldn't go there. So we are in a tapas bar.
Yes, very much. Thank you to Brindisa Tapas who have squeezed us in at the last minute today. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the questions. PubMatic, you've been around for a couple of decades,
yep.
But I know you're still kind of relatively newer to the commerce space. Do you want to explain your role in the ecosystem for anyone that might not be familiar?
Yeah, of course. So I think it might be beneficial to kind of start with why we call it commerce media versus retail media. And I think that you've got many definitions of what that means in the industry. And we wanted to go with the definition of what any company that can have a transaction on site is what we classify as commerce media. So we work with everyone from travel companies all the way through to banking organisations, and in the middle you've got your traditional retailers. Yep. So we've been around for a couple of decades now, or close to a couple of decades, and we are traditionally an SSP that are built around helping content creators monetize their inventory and their data more effectively. A couple of years back, we decided to see if that was an option for commerce media of like, how can we utilize our technology and tactics to be able to do that in a more efficient way for those commerce media platforms. So we launched a platform called Convert in 2023. So we're now almost a year old, and that platform we feel is unique in the market because it is a unified platform that enables you to do your sponsor listings, your audience data monetization, your on-site and your off-site business. So we kind of sit within that intersection of supply, data, and on-site monetization. So we feel that we've built that unique capabilities within that.
You mentioned the off-site piece of this,
yeah.
And I think more and more this year we're seeing retail media and off-site opportunities coming together. How are you seeing this play out in reality, and how do you think it's going to evolve?
I think that's a really interesting question, because when a retailer or a commerce company wants to launch retail media business, they always go for the bottom of the funnel sponsor listings. They don't seem to realize how challenging that is as a business to get that up and running. And for us at PubMatic, we foresee the opportunity is more around data monetization. How can we use that first party data that's going to be incredibly important once, I like to call, the Google apocalypse happens from the cookie-less world, but do it in a more efficient way. And we're starting to see that a lot of retailers, we're partnering with a bunch in the UK, a bunch in the US, and globally, that are starting to look at us for data monetization to then leverage for off-site activation. And because we're an independent company, we are not tied to one activation platform. So we're not saying you have to use a Google activation or a trade desk or another DSP. We're saying to the brand or the agency, here's the data you want to activate. We can then tie that to the publishers that we work with and have worked with for the last almost 20 years, and then create that performance, but almost more branding-based activation for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely such a huge opportunity in the off-site media. We're seeing it in all the numbers and all the forecasts at the moment. Related to that then, I guess, so we've seen in the last week the acquisition of Vizio by Walmart, and we saw last month Amazon launching Prime Video's ads. How do you see this playing out in CTV? Like, how do you think that space is going to evolve over the next 12 months?
So I think that's a really great question, and we're starting to see the convergence between first-party data in general, and we could classify that as retail media or just general first-party data, activated upon CTV, because typically CTV was upper funnel, very limited amount of data that you can look at targeting 18 to 34-year-olds that are in sport, for example. But now you're becoming to leverage those insights that you're seeing that Amazon have, that Walmart have, and that what other retailers are offering, and trying to create a more bespoke experience for consumers when it comes to connected TV. Why is that important? Because broadcast TV today is very limited with the amount of scale that you can get, and that's why the likes of ITV and Channel 4 are starting to adapt to that methodology as well. Where I see it going in the future is more around the measurement piece of how you can fuel that insight that you're doing from your campaign to then absolutely measure from what the upper funnel perspective is down to the lower funnel. And we're starting to see brands really engage with us from that element of how can we create campaigns that are more aligned versus disaligned from a performance and a branding.
I've been hearing this phrase brandformance more and more. I think it had its day about 2 years ago, and then now suddenly with this convergence of retail media and CTV, I'm hearing everybody talking about it again.
It's really exciting because we're working with a bunch of agencies at the moment to help them with that brandformance, because there are brands that are looking at it going, well, we don't want a performance and we don't want a branding budget, we want one. And we are trying to help the agencies and brands to better understand what that information looks like, or the data that they have looks like, because we are unique in the fact that we are an SSP and have that information from upper funnel, CTV, publishers, all the way down to lower funnel from a retailer. We can help inform decisions that create a better outcome for the brands, ultimately.
The measurement piece is going to be so interesting. I think we're only just scratching the surface with things like Amazon Marketing Cloud and the goal of the data clean rooms. So I'm definitely interested to see how that evolves over the next.
I think that's the biggest opportunity at the moment, is in that clean room environment, because with GDPR and CCPA in the US, brands, more importantly retailers or ad tech companies, are not willing to share that data more effectively because they can't share that data. So a clean room environment gives the log files that you need to be able to make those outcomes more efficient. But I think the challenge is at the moment is a brand or an agency doesn't really understand what that data looks like, because it's just a number of ones and twos and zeros. And it's once that information becomes readily available, that's when it becomes more powerful for brands to utilize.
Yeah, for sure. I think measurement could be one of the things that holds back the growth of commerce media if that doesn't get sorted and easy, like you say, kind of democratized across the entire team to be able to use. But what else do you think might hold back the growth of commerce media in the future?
Just to touch on the measurement piece, initially, we are launching what's called closed loop reporting in the upcoming months, which enables us to see the full funnel of advertising from ads served on CTV all the way through to retailer. And because we think that's unique in the industry, because we are an SSP and other SSPs do not offer that capability. The other thing that I find could hold back the industry is the standardization, again, using that word, of activation. Retailers will choose one or another platform, particularly from sponsor listings or an on-site capability. How do they standardize that from a buying perspective? Like you guys at Sky must know from working with Amazon, it's very challenging to operate within Amazon's world, but then how do you work with a Tesco? Or then how do you work with Currys that all have different platforms? It's how do you standardize what that looks like from a buying perspective, but then also a measurement perspective. And I feel retailers today don't really know what they need to know. And there's a massive opportunity for them, because everyone sees that big number that Amazon drove $50 billion worth last year. and they want a slice of that pie, but they don't really know what that pie looks like themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we can come in and help them to understand what they require. We're talking to a bunch of retailers at the moment, and they're saying, we want a sponsored listing. So it's like, well, okay, which platform do you want to use? And we're like, we don't know. And so it's a case of us to help them to really figure out what their requirements are, and to then start to create a crawl, walk, run program for them versus going for the run straight away. And that's where we're seeing a lot of traction from them, is because we can operate in that realm and have that unified platform, which is, for me, being in the industry for so long, is incredibly unique. To have the ability to do your sponsor listings, your on-site, your audience targeting, and your off-site within one ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that is where we're starting to see retailers lean in to be able to utilize that more effectively.
Cool. So the future is very much full funnel, I think is the takeaway from that. And you have to think about it all together. We have exactly the same conversation with, like, we can't start thinking about the off-site differently to the on-site. So even your search and social campaign is like where we're concerned. Like, it all needs to be thought about.
I completely agree, and I think like what underpins that all is the data. That's the most critical part, that retailers or commerce companies have that information at hand. Is how do you make that information work smarter and harder for, I shouldn't probably say this, but less budget. And that's what you need to do from a brand perspective. I worked in Unilever for a hot second, and Unilever very much focus around that data and information, like how can we utilize that in a more smarter way to be able to leverage our media spend in a better way.
Yeah.
And that's where the industry is going to come around, is doing that full funnel marketing capabilities from CTV to performance on-site activity.
But I think to your point around, like, you shouldn't mention it, what we see is, if you can provide that data and the insights as a retailer, then like performance drives reinvestment is what we've seen over and over again in our studies. So, and when we're speaking to clients. So there's this kind of fear amongst the retailers that we talk to that actually providing this information is going to reduce spend because it'll become more efficient if you start using a platform like Sky and make this data available. It's the opposite. Like we see actually when you're getting the performance, better performance, more money goes into it. So.
And it fuels that, I hate saying the word flywheel because it's what Amazon created, the word flywheel. But it creates that flywheel. The more sales that they're driving, the better profit they're going to be making in the long term from it all. So it's one of those conversations that needs to happen. And just to add on to that, from what we're trying to do at PubMatic from a demand perspective, so the brands advertising with our retailers, is how can they be, again, looking at that information and the data to better inform their upper funnel from curating publisher level performance, because everyone sees they're running a campaign on, I don't know, Amazon DSP.
Yeah.
They see that a performance is 10x ROAS. Great, works well. But how do you take that information even deeper and look at what the publisher performance was on Amazon DSP to then curate deals through PubMatic to then inform their upper funnel strategy? And that's where we're starting to change the way that agencies and brands are looking at how to work with the sort of like the triangle of everything into one.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm going to move on to our favourite part of the show, which is the quick fire questions.
Go for it.
Not had any prep on this, so you're answering this
Under
blind.
pressure.
Yeah. Okay, first one. You used to work at Amazon.
Yep.
What was your last Amazon purchase?
Oh, good question. It was, this is going to sound really random, but a foldable bucket. Because I've just signed up to a subscription for Pop Gang, which is a plant subscription that they send you like loads of veg and fruit and veg. My wife didn't want a big bucket in our house, so I had to get a smaller foldable bucket. So that was my last purchase.
I love it. They have absolutely everything.
Oh, it's amazing.
And we talked about streaming TV. What was the last show that you binge watched?
I forgot the name of it now. It's it's Formula One Drive to Survive, the new season. We watched probably 8 episodes of that on Netflix last night. I mean, I say I fell asleep during half of it, but my wife watched the majority of it.
I'm not a Formula One fan, but I do have a Formula One story that I will tell you when we're not on camera.
Okay,
it's
interesting.
Brilliant, from last night. Someone's laughing at me on camera now. So we were meant to be in a pub, and you're called PubMatic.
Yep.
What is your tipple of choice?
It has to be, I'll tell you what, my favourite tipple is Harvey's Bitter, because I'm a southerner by heart and grew up in Sussex, and Harvey's was our local brewery in Lewes. So my brothers and I always try and find a pub in London that serves it. So we will always go and find it. But it's very rare because they can't have it within a certain radius section.
Okay, and on a similar theme, if you were stuck on a desert island for the rest of your life and you could only have 3 alcoholic drinks, you get as much water as you want, what would the 3 drinks be?
Harvey's, rum, probably vodka as well. I'll go for that.
Good one. I always say pisco sour, because then you've got the eggs as well. It's like 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, but you're on a desert island. You can actually, I don't know, find something to eat or drink.
Okay, and would you rather have super slow internet or low battery on your phone?
Super slow. No, sorry, low battery on my phone. I think
I'm the same.
I barely use my phone. I use it for just calls and texts, and that's it.
So it doesn't really matter.
My wife spends 99% of her time on Instagram, and we looked at that up, and we actually, you can see the report of like what you use the most apps for. So for me, it's just battery on the phone.
Good. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
It's been
Thank you
fun
so
chatting
much.
to you.
Likewise.